Hello, my name is Arthur. I am the author of the picture book series, The Adventures of Talia and the Keys. This is the second book in the series. Today we are going to read the story of Talia and the Shadow Dance. One night, when the moon hung like a silver coin in the velvet sky, Talia sat in her room, tracing patterns on her window pane. Outside, the wind sang a sleepy song, and the trees swayed their branches in time to the lullaby of the leaves. Inside, Talia snuggled deep into her armchair, surrounded by her magical keys. Each one glimmered softly in the moonlight, patiently waiting for the next adventure. Talia loved these nights. She would hold her keys one by one, listening for their whispers, for their stories, for their songs. They never failed to delight her, but tonight, as she held one of the small bronze keys, it suddenly began to flicker with a faint silvery light. Talia gasped. The key grew brighter and brighter, and then a soft voice whispered to her, "Talia, child of moonlight, it is time for the shadow dance." Talia didn't know what the shadow dance was, or why the key had chosen her for this adventure. But as usual, she smiled and said, "Let's see what this adventure has in store for me." She stood up, took a deep breath, spun the key in the air, and closed her eyes. When she opened them again, she was no longer in her room. She stood instead in a strange valley shrouded in mist. All around her stretched a gray landscape. No sun, no clouds, no colors. Only shadows, tall and thin as reeds, walked and moved over the ground, as if dancing. Startled by the sudden change of scenery, Talia wanted to call out, but no sound came from her throat. She tried to run, but her feet seemed glued to the spot. "What is this place? What has happened to me?" she whispered, her voice echoing strangely in her own ears. Then one of the shadows detached itself from the others and glided silently closer to her. It took the shape of a small, thin boy with the sad eyes. He tried to move in rhythm with the other shadows, but his steps were clumsy and slow. The other shadows parted to let him pass, but they whispered and pointed at him, and Talia saw tears on his pale cheeks. Suddenly, one of the shadows broke away from the group and approached Talia. He didn't whisper or shout, but somehow Talia understood his words. "His name is Lumi, a shadow without rhythm, and if he doesn't find his dance, he will disappear," he said with a gesture. Then he turned and joined the other shadows who continued their silent dance. Talia felt a pang of sympathy for the small shadow boy. She couldn't bear the thought of him disappearing from this world. And although she didn't know how, she knew she had to help him. "Don't worry, Lumi," she said aloud. "I'm sure we'll find your dance. After all, every shadow needs to dance, right?" Lumi looked up at her and gave her a watery smile. "Thank you," he whispered. "I've lost my dance. I don't remember it anymore. Without my dance, I will disappear. Then my friends will forget me, and Mama Shadow will be sad." His voice trembled, and Talia felt her own eyes stinging. She hugged Lumi. "We're gonna find your dance, I promise," she said. So Talia and Lumi set off together to find his forgotten dance. As they walked, the shadows cast by the trees took on strange shapes. Some resembled playful puppies, while others looked like graceful swans. Talia stopped to admire them, and Lumi joined her, pointing out the different figures. "Look, there's a bird," Talia said, laughing. "And there's a rabbit," added Lumi, his face brightening. Then, pointing to a nearby tree, he said, "Let's ask the Elder Shadow for help. Maybe he knows my dance." The Elder Shadow sat cross-legged at the foot of a large tree. His long, flowing beard reached almost to the ground, and his eyes twinkled with ancient wisdom. Dahlia and Lumi sat down opposite him, and Dahlia explained their quest. The loss of one's dance is a serious matter, said the Elder Shadow after a long pause. Without a dance, a shadow loses its identity and fades away into nothingness. But fear not, child. I know a place where Lumi might find his dance. It lies hidden in the Whispering Caves, guarded by the Singing Rocks. If you can find the rock that sings the melody of shadows, it might just help Lumi remember his dance. Grateful for the advice, Dahlia and Lumi rose to their feet. Which way is the cave? Asked Dahlia. If you walk past the babbling brook and over the bridge made of moonlight, you will hear the entrance to the caves. Just follow the music of the rocks, said the Elder Shadow. Be careful though, child, for the Singing Rocks are tricky, and their melodies can confuse even the bravest of hearts. Dahlia thanked the Elder Shadow once more and set off with Lumi. Soon they reached the babbling brook. Its water sparkled like 1,000 tiny mirrors, and the sound of its flow filled the air. Hand in hand, Dahlia and Lumi crossed the bridge made of moonlight, and when they reached the other side, they heard a faint melody. It seemed to come from within the rocks, and the notes were as clear and beautiful as running water. As they followed the sound, the rocks seemed to open up before them, revealing a dark and narrow passage. Are you sure this is the right way, Lumi? Dahlia whispered, feeling a shiver run down her spine. The melody grew louder as they went deeper into the caves, and soon the walls on either side began to glow with a soft, ethereal light. They walked on until the passage opened up into a large cavern. In the center stood a tall rock monolith, and from its peak flowed a dazzling cascade of light and sound. As Dahlia and Lumi stepped inside, the Singing Rocks welcomed them with a powerful melody. The entire cavern resonated with the sound of rushing waterfalls, and the light danced and shimmered, creating a magical atmosphere. In the heart of the cavern stood a small pool of water, and from its depths an ethereal voice echoed, "Who dares disturb the ancient slumber of the Singing Rocks?" Dahlia stepped forward. I am Dahlia, and I seek the rock that sings the melody of shadows. We need your help, she said, extending her hand towards the pool. A moment of silence hung in the air before the voice spoke again. Very well, I shall grant you your wish. But beware, child, for the Rock of Shadows is guarded by illusions. Do not trust what you see, but listen closely to what you hear, and you shall find your prize. As the voice faded away, the melody of the Singing Rocks changed, taking on a haunting and melancholic tone. The music flowed around Dahlia and Lumi, weaving a tapestry of sound that seemed to touch their very souls. Suddenly, the shadows in the cavern began to dance, taking on all shapes and sizes, some playful and light-hearted, others dark and menacing. Dahlia felt a sense of unease wash over her as she realized that the illusions had begun. The melody shifted again, becoming faster and more dissonant. The shadows swirled and twisted, creating a dizzying display of light and darkness. Dahlia stumbled, catching herself on a nearby rock. She could feel her determination slipping away, replaced by confusion and fear. But then she remembered Lumi and the importance of their quest. Taking a deep breath, Dahlia focused on the melody, searching for the harmony that lay hidden within. The music swelled, reaching a crescendo before falling silent. When the rocks fell silent, Dahlia listened intently, trying to make sense of the sounds around her. She heard the dripping of water, the distant echo of her own heartbeat, and a faint whisper. As she strained to listen, the whisper grew clearer. Over the bridge of moonlight, under the weeping willow, where the shadows dance in silent sorrow, lies the rock that sings the melody of shadows. Dahlia understood. The riddle lay not in what she heard, but in what she didn't. The absence of certain sounds pointed the way. With renewed purpose, Dahlia and Lumi retraced their steps. They crossed the bridge made of moonlight and arrived at the weeping willow. Its long, drooping branches formed a natural arch over their heads, and the shadows cast by its leaves danced listlessly on the ground. As Dahlia approached the willow, she noticed a small opening in its trunk. Peering inside, she saw a faint glow emanating from the darkness. With Lumi by her side, Dahlia stepped through the opening and found herself in a secret chamber. In the center stood a pedestal made of polished stone, and upon it rested a single key. It shimmered with an otherworldly light, and its intricate design seemed to hum with power. As Dahlia reached for the key, a voice echoed through the chamber. "So you have found the Rock of Shadows, child. Are you ready to claim its power?" Dahlia knew that this was the moment of truth. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. As she grasped the key, the chamber began to shake, and the melody of the singing rocks filled the air. The key pulsed with energy, and Dahlia could feel its power coursing through her veins. Suddenly, the entrance to the chamber burst open, and the Elder Shadow stepped inside. "Dahlia," he said, his voice grave, "the power of the Rock of Shadows is not to be taken lightly. Are you sure you wish to wield such power?" Dahlia hesitated. She had come so far, but now she wasn't so sure if this was the right thing to do. But then she looked at Lumi, whose eyes shone with hope and gratitude. She knew that he needed her help, and she couldn't let him down. Taking a deep breath, Dahlia nodded. "Yes, I am sure," she whispered. The moment her lips formed the words, the key in her hand blazed with brilliant light. When the light subsided, the key was gone, and in its place lay a cloak woven from the very essence of shadows. As Dahlia reached out to touch it, the cloak enveloped her, transforming her into a creature of pure shadow. She felt an overwhelming sense of power, mixed with a deep connection to all shadows and darkness. Dahlia turned to the Elder Shadow. "How do I use this power?" she whispered, her voice echoing with the strength of 1,000 shadows. The Elder Shadow smiled. "You already know, child. You have brought light into the darkness. That is the greatest power of all." Understanding dawned on Dahlia's face. She didn't need to control shadows, for she had already done so by bringing light into their lives. With a newfound sense of purpose, Dahlia emerged from the cave with Lumi at her side. The cloak flowed around her, blending seamlessly with the shadows cast by the trees. She led the way back to the babbling brook, where the bridge of moonlight awaited. As they crossed the bridge, Dahlia could feel the cloak responding to her emotions. It swirled and twisted, expressing her joy and excitement. When they reached the other side, the shadows greeted them with a joyous dance, celebrating their return. Dahlia and Lumi joined in, twirling and leaping in perfect harmony. Reaching the edge of the forest, Dahlia turned to face the valley one last time. The cloak flowed majestically behind her, and the melody of the singing rocks echoed in her ears. She knew that she would never forget her adventure in the land of shadows. And as she walked away, the shadows danced on, forever connected to the girl who had brought light into their world. The end.